This story we have for you was submitted by an individual stuck with a dogman on his property that he can't get to leave. He brings up an important point. When we feature people talking about how they avoided the dogman or made it leave their property, we are not giving professional advice. We're just passing on ideas that people sent us. I myself have never seen a dogman, so please don't take comments on our channel as guarantees to work. The human race is only beginning to understand what people are seeing when they encounter dogman. Comments made on this channel should be taken as ideas that people are trying out, not as final answers or solutions to issues revolving around dogman and other large cryptids. With that caveat in place, I'd like to launch into the latest dogman habituation account that we've received. We're calling this one, Dogman Stole My Game Trail Camera. Dear Scary Stories, NYC. I am writing to you because I followed advice given on your channel concerning the dogman, and it did not work for me. I'm not blaming you. I'm not going to sue. I mainly hope you use this on your show so that I can borrow your platform to let people know that game trail cameras do not always work to scare the dogman off your property. I mean, maybe we have a different kind of dogman around here, but when we put up our trail camera, we only seem to have ticked off our habituated, upright canine. Now, for me to be completely honest about this saga, for lack of a better word, I need to begin this narrative about a month before our habituation problem began. You see, we both saw a dogman that must have been the same one we currently have issues with, and we saw him some miles to the north of where we live. We nearly got into an accident because of that thing. So let me first tell you about that incident, and then when you understand as clearly as possible what happened that time, I think the habituation story might make a lot more sense to you. So let's all go back to 2021 in the spring, when we had our first sighting. So my wife, we can call Margie, and I were driving on Indiana Route 142 one evening, heading over to deliver supplies to some elderly family friends. We were driving east along there at the time, and it was starting to get dark out. There's a spot on the road, and I sent you a screen grab of it from Google Maps Street View. This is where our sighting and almost accident happened. Now, you can see it's just a 2-lane blacktop with a small metal fence on either side, and forest surrounding. If you look to the right, you see there's a bit of a deep chasm on the side there, a bit of a drop-off. However, you can also see fallen trees covering that chasm like 4 separate bridges over the cavity in the earth. I don't know and can't tell if those fell naturally or if they were placed there to be used for the purpose of a bridge, but the way the branches seem to be removed does tend to make me wonder if intelligent minds placed those there deliberately, and if this was in fact intended to be a series of bridges. Now, I probably would have never even noticed these logs, and I certainly wouldn't be wondering about why they were there, except that as Margie and I drove up to that part of the road on that evening, something large was in fact tightrope walking across one big fallen log, and was heading directly for the road in front of us. Now I'm going to describe this creature to you, and it was quite terrifying to see. But in that moment, the more important thing than the features of the animal was the size of it. Although it did walk on 2 legs, it was not a human. It was far too large to be a human. And even though it had very dark or possibly black hair, this was not a black bear. Yes, I know bears can walk upright, but this was not a bear. Yes, I know that when bears get mange and thin out, they can begin to look quite canine. But this creature did not have mange. It was not thin. It was fit and muscular. Its chest was so massive that it looked a bit top-heavy, like it might tip over. But the muscles on the 2 hind legs were so massive, they looked like they could carry an elephant along easily. For all those who are going to presume that Margie and I misidentified a black bear, you should know, black bears don't grow as large as this thing. Maybe it could have been a polar bear with mange and a dark wig, but there are no black bears as large as this monster was, and there are no bears with the body shape of this creature. If we had run into this thing, I'm not sure if he would be hurt worse or our car, and that is not hyperbole. I mean, this animal man looked like an immovable object that I was about to ram into. I judged it as too late to stop the car before we were going to plow into each other, and something the man thing did made me panic even more. It looked right at me, saw that we were about to crash, and then just went back to walking at the same pace. Let's face it, we all know it's easier to stop yourself if you're about to run into a car than it is for the driver to stop in time. That monster could have easily slowed down to allow us to pass, and yet it chose not to. Seeing as I could not stop in time at the speed we were going, I hit the gas instead and swerved into the left lane. We sped by the creature literally so close that its nose was about an inch from my wife's passenger side window as we sped by. I mean, we missed taking part of its snout off by an inch. I'm lucky enough to say I've never been in an actual car accident, but that time, we both came incredibly close. And that Dogman had done that on purpose. Why had it done that on purpose? I don't know, and I have to admit, wondering about the whys of that incident kept me up at night for weeks. Who am I kidding? I still have nightmares about that incident, even though things have gotten worse since then. And I have so many more things to wake up screaming about these days. Before I go on, I want to try to describe the creature based on my memories of those 3 or 4 seconds that we got a good clear up-close look at the monster from head to toe. Margie helped me write this next part. I wanted to include every detail we could both remember. After this part, I'll get into the actual habituation part of the story. So as I said, it was covered in black fur, and it was super tall. It must have been over 9 feet tall. In fact, we both guessed something more like 10 or 11 feet, as crazy as that sounds. It did appear to have the hind legs of a canine, but they were modified from your house pet so that they could carry a lot more weight. Speaking of weight, this had to be the heaviest dog I'd ever seen, but it had almost no body fat. It was all muscle, bone, claws, teeth, and fur. The head was very canine, with tall pointed ears. It did not have a round face like a bear. It was long and angular, like a wolf. The ears were too tall to be wolf ears, though, and the creature looked far more savage than an animal should look. I mean, something about it screamed monster more than animal. It seemed built deliberately ugly, like a vulture or a buzzard. It seemed to have been designed to strike fear in the hearts of mortal men, and my wife Margie, too. And as for the eye shine, it looked completely unnatural. What I mean is, it did not look like it had eyes that reflected light. It looked like it had lit-up glowing robot eyes somehow embedded in that giant dog-like skull. The thing I remember most about driving past him, though, those few seconds as we narrowly avoided smashing into each other, was something intangible. I saw him leaning over to look in the windows at me and my wife. I saw it looking like it was grinning. Those huge white carnivorous choppers, shining almost as bright as its inhuman eyes. I sensed strangely a sense of glee from the thing. I mean, it seemed pleased somehow, and it seemed so very interested in what Margie and I looked like. Once we were past the beast, I had too many immediate survival issues to attend to in that moment. I had to swerve back hard to the right to avoid driving off the road, and then swerve back left. There was no way I was going to take my foot off that pedal until we were past the huge monster man, so that meant every bit of my attention had to be focused on steering the car. Once I could breathe again, I asked Margie where he was. She said she didn't know. I asked what did that mean, and she said he ran into the woods, and that was all she knew. Shivers went up and down my spine, thinking he might be in those woods to either side of us or behind. Or what if he knew a shortcut and he was about to appear in front of us again? I drove over 70 miles an hour for a few minutes more, Eventually we saw traffic coming our way from off in the distance, and I brought us back down under the speed limit. My heart was still beating like it was going to explode, and I still felt more paranoid than anything else. I was looking around, wondering what was going to pop out onto the road next. So I was a bit of a wreck for a while after that. I assumed Margie was too, but she seemed more together about it than me. Maybe if she had been the driver, it might have been reversed, but for the most part, I seemed to have been the more traumatized of the two of us. Still, we regarded it as a one-time incident, and after a few weeks, I was really already beginning to get over it. After all, nothing like that would ever happen to me again, so I should just release it emotionally and let it go. I was doing pretty well moving past it, when a little less than a month later, I got up to use the bathroom in the middle of the night, and there it was, outside the bathroom window, grinning in at me. The thing is, we sleep on the second floor of our house. The creature had to have been standing on a little patch of roof below that bathroom window. It had to have climbed up the outside of our house to get where he was. I ran into the bedroom to wake my wife up, but by the time we both got back to the bathroom, of course the creature had split. This was when we entered the phase where everyone wondered if I was hallucinating and going insane. And when I say everyone, I'm sort of including myself in that. I wondered if I had really seen what I saw. After all, I had just woken up. Maybe it was one of those hypnagogic or hypnopompic hallucinations. I guess I mean hypnopompic. Hypnagogic hallucinations are associated with sleep paralysis, and I was not paralyzed. I was up and walking around. So I guess I was wondering if stress had brought about a situation where I was dreaming while awake. The problem with that theory was that I had been feeling better. I had been seeing the Dogman as something from my past that would be less painful every day as we moved into the future. It was no longer something I was overly upset about, so why would I suddenly become worse than before and have visions of monsters that were not there? Margie didn't badger me about it, but I could tell by the look in her eyes that she was worried about me and even seemed to sort of pity me. Of course, this drove a wedge between us for a while, and I began sleeping downstairs on a couch in my office with the shades drawn so that I couldn't see outside, and nothing outside could see in either. The decision to do that caused our friends to join Margie in wondering if I was losing the plot to life. Looking back, I can't say I really blame them, but my true frustration and stress stemmed from the fact that even my own wife, who had seen the same creature I saw on the highway that evening, didn't believe that the creature had tracked us all the way home. Now, if you know the Dogman is real, if you saw one an inch away from your passenger seat window as she did, then how much harder is it to accept that the creature has tracking instincts? It looks like a canine, and canines can track humans down over hundreds of miles. Why would it be impossible that this creature could do the same? It had a long snout, and I'm sure its nose was and is as good as that of a bloodhound. It just still annoys me that nobody even considered that I might have actually seen a real Dogman outside the bathroom window that night. There are friends I completely lost respect for during that period. Well, I guess I mean all of them. I don't feel very close to anybody on the planet any longer. Nobody assumed that I might just be telling the truth. It's like all those years I knew them, they never knew me. So do I really have any friends at all? I don't suppose I do. I went and bought a trail camera and set it up attached to a tree pointing directly toward the house, where it would need to climb in order to get up to the second-story bathroom. If it ever did that again, I'd have a good chance of getting an image of it to prove that I'm not crazy. I didn't really expect to get a photo, though. I bought it more as a talisman to drive the evil beast away. I heard on your channel and read on some blogs that the Dogman does not like trail cameras. From the scuttlebutt I was able to expose myself to, it seemed that once people tried to get evidence of the Dogman, they would instinctively know this and go habituate on someone else's property. I mean, I got the camera to get people to stop calling me insane, but unfortunately, It did the opposite. Now they thought I was obsessing to the point of spending money to fight off a monster that wasn't there. They thought I was tilting at windmills, as they say. It led to some ugly arguments, and I really have not begun to forgive my family or friends for any of that yet. The story does have something of a happy ending, though, in that the next time I saw the creature, Margie saw it as well. In fact, that's the incident referred to in the title of this episode. She and I were both looking out of a second-story window in the house when the creature discovered the trail camera. So she and I were having a serious conversation about separating, and Margie was crying. She was genuinely concerned for me. She really thought I was cracking up. She didn't want to leave me alone when I was so vulnerable, but I was the one insisting on the split up. At one point, Margie was looking out the window, and she stopped crying suddenly. Calling me over, my wife pointed downstairs outside and asked me what I saw down there. I saw the Dogman. He was staring at the trail camera and slowly, tentatively, approaching it from the side. He seemed to know not to walk in front of the thing, although how an animal would know that, I will never be able to explain. I almost said to Margie what I said to you, that the Dogman was back again. The big, black-furred, 10 or 11 foot tall living nightmare. Just before I did, though, I wondered if she was playing a trick on me, so instead of answering, I just asked her, "Well, what are you seeing?" Margie gasped and pointed again. When I looked back outside, I saw the Dogman's huge right claw reach out and grab the camera. Then, somehow, with 2 or 3 tugs, the Dogman somehow succeeded in pulling the camera off the tree. I don't even comprehend how he could have done that in terms of the physics. That camera was held onto that tree by a generous amount of Velcro, and it should not have been removable by being pulled forward the way the creature did it. It didn't look like it had exerted enough pull to accomplish that. I will say that when the sun came up and we went downstairs to investigate, we saw that it had actually tilted the tree forward a bit toward it when it did this, and the roots in the back were pulled an inch or 2 up in the air out of the ground. So the Dogman must be remarkably strong, just unfathomably strong. It didn't even have a good angle on what it was pulling, since it seemed determined not to get its picture taken. I don't even know if a young Schwarzenegger could have done what we both saw that dog-like monster man do. Once it had succeeded in pulling the device off the tree trunk, the creature turned and looked directly at us in the window upstairs. We both gasped in surprise and took a step backward. How had it known we were watching? I don't know how, but it knew, and it grinned at us as though to say, "Nice try, but you won't get rid of me that easily." Then we both watched it run away with our camera. Things have been pretty terrible since then, but my wife Margie is back on my side and no longer gives me those pity looks. Half our friends have apologized to me, but I don't really have any respect left for any of them. If friends aren't there for you when you're down, are they really your friends at all? I told them all that I forgive them because I don't have the energy for any ongoing feuds, but I consider my wife and our pets to be my only friends moving forward in life. What else does a man really need other than a loyal wife and a dog and a cat? I consider myself lucky to have figured out what matters in life because of this crisis. Just because this creature thwarted our efforts to either scare him off or get a photo of him, that doesn't mean we've stopped trying to encourage him to leave our property. We can't really afford to move, so we've been experimenting with different techniques that we read of other people doing. Right now we're trying something that Bigfoot habituation victims have tried. We're leaving offerings of meat out near where we've seen the creature coming from at night. The meat is always gone by the morning, but there are a lot of animals that could be taking it away with them. We haven't seen the Dogman for a while, but it's only been about 10 days as I write this that we've been doing the meat thing. I'm almost hoping it doesn't work, because meat is getting so expensive. It might be cheaper to borrow some money and just move. If anything else truly crazy happens, I'll write you about it. And if anyone in your audience has a better idea of how we can get this Dogman to go away, please leave a comment. We will be reading them all. I wish I could give you a game trial photo of the Dogman to prove this all really happened to us, but I can't. Because Dogman stole my game trail camera. Lions roar and snakes all hiss, but the coolest of them all is Chris. I'm talking about our EP Chris C. She's the best, indubitably. Please join us in thanking Chris C for making this episode possible. She's one of our top tier members, and she gets all our perks, including our secret uncensored Dogman stories far too wild to tell on this channel. If you're interested in our secret uncensored stories and our over 25 hours of archived secret Dogman stories, then you might want to listen to what Henry Lee Dogman has to say. Hank? Thanks, Biggie. And thanks to all of you for watching this far. If you liked it, please click like. If you'd like to see more of our work, please subscribe. And also click that bell icon if you'd like to be notified when we put out a new episode. To become an executive producer, you can donate to us through the thanks button under each of our videos or through our paypal.me/PeterBernard209 page. To receive cool perks like secret uncensored Dogman episodes far too wild to ever run on this channel, you can become a YouTube channel member by clicking the join button, or join our PayPal subscribers club at peterbernard.com. Joining either at the $3 a month level or above gets you access to our over 25 hours of secret uncensored Dogman stories available nowhere else. Do you have a scary story about Dogman or some other kind of high strangeness that happened to you? Let us know by emailing us at scarystoriesnyc@gmail.com or by leaving us a voicemail message at 804-LA-SCARY. You may need to call back on that one. It cuts off after I think 3 minutes. And if you don't want to do any of that stuff, thank you for simply watching to the end. Good night, and have a scary tomorrow.
Come back for more scary stories.